You realize deep way under the surface, and like a fire needs coal in the furnace. This is your goal that makes it all worth it. This is your why that gives you your purpose. Let's go. Thoughts can keep you down, pushing deep until you drown, or they can keep you up strong, focused on the now. Glass half full, or has it been emptied out? Well, that's all up to you and your mind. Do you doubt anything, everything, not a thing? Make my thoughts work for me, manifest what I need, what I want, what I see. I could be anything, I attract all the things that I see. I believe I'll achieve as I breathe in and out again and again. I don't doubt, I sit and I plan, and I found out that I can execute if I'm driven, if I listen, if I learn all the wisdom. Read some books, something written, watch the best. Teach a system I invest, never hidden, I ain't scared. Ain't no chicken, I take dares. I'll be winning, you get back what you're giving. Find the reason that you're living, what you're good at, all your gifts and what you love. Take a risk and find out what you've been missing. Yeah. You realize deep way under the surface, and like a fire needs coal in the furnace. This is your goal that makes it all worth it. This is your why that gives you your purpose. You realize deep way under the surface, and like a fire needs coal in the furnace. This is your goal that makes it all worth it. This is your why that gives you your purpose.
Welcome to the Party Pals GRC Mafia. We're here to break down barriers, foster collaboration, community, working towards a more secure future for everybody. Definitely a learning and growing environment. This is just a special stream here. We started talking a little bit about like the post-quantum standards from NIST and so forth. And then, you know, there's so much information that goes with that. I kind of felt like just doing a completely separate stream for it entirely, especially since I was already kind of digging into it myself anyways. I did just drop the stage link. If you guys want to come up on stage, you're more than welcome to. I'll drop that throughout. You do not have to turn on your video. You could just turn on your microphone only if you prefer to. But you can also hang out and chat too. That's perfectly fine. One of the best places to post your social media if you want to connect with the rest of the community, or if you want to share resources throughout the stream itself, is going to be to jump into our Discord server. That allows you to send links into the YouTube chat itself, because YouTube won't let you do it. So you can hop in there and then go over to our live chat channel. Definitely ask questions, share resources throughout. Don't share anything that you don't want to be public. It is on the internet. If you happen to slip up, reach out to me on Discord, LinkedIn, or contact@studygrc.org, and we could see what we could do about that. Let's see here. And so I'm going to jump right into it. This is like the post that NIST ended up doing. I'll go ahead and drop all of these links. There's a lot of information that coincides with this. A lot more than I originally thought. But this basically goes through and gives just a high level of what the goal and purpose was, and then also which documents this references out to, which is primarily this FIPS 203, 204, and 205. And there's a couple other things related to that as well, but I'll show you guys here shortly on just how much there really is from NIST on cryptography. And as I mentioned, like I have absolutely no idea about any of this. I just started digging into it and so forth, especially considering the fact that the best estimates as of right now is we're going to have legitimate quantum threats like in the next 10 years. And you know, it's kind of concerning that there's still a lot of different services that aren't prioritizing implementation. One key one of which is like Proton Mail. Proton Mail is known for their privacy and security, and yet for some reason they don't have post-quantum. But like their primary competitor, TUDA, I think that's how you pronounce it, TUDA, they do. They actually did implement post-quantum encryption. So I am not saying NIST is too much. That is not what came out of my mouth, Brexy. What I'm saying is I had no idea how heavy NIST was on NIST. I just glossed over all of the different cryptography documents that NIST has, because it's not really a favorite topic of mine per se. But I mean, especially considering everything that's going on and so forth, like I consider it to be very critical at this point. So yeah, exactly. As soon as 5 years. And that's another scary portion of it too, is that it's just an estimate. It could be, 10 years, it could be 3 years. We don't know. So yeah, it's actually a really legitimate thing. And there's also a whole other thing on harvest now, decrypt later too. That's like one of my biggest concerns, is that, maybe you guys heard of Snowden and so forth, but like there's nothing that stops them from storing the information now and then decrypting it later on when it's going to be cheap and more effective. Maybe that'll be 5 years, 10 years, 20, 30 years down the road, but still, regardless, that information could still be there. So, and then also when we're talking about like national security and so forth, the federal government still runs on the AES 256, and, there's all kinds of different stuff that coincides with that. PBO has talked about how outdated legacy systems that are used. So there's a lot of stuff that coincides. And yeah, I'm just really surprised. Like, the technology's out there and available for post-quantum. It's just not being implemented. And like I said, like Proton, I'm actually really surprised. I thought they did have post-quantum, but they don't. Welcome to the party, pal. Cam, Brexy, Miss Burgess. Ranya's popping in. Bam, GRC Mafia. But I did drop this link in chat as well. So this is like the primary release that they did. This has been an ongoing thing for years now. They went through like 3 or 4 rounds. They had like 86 people submit different standards, and then they narrowed that all the way down to 3. So one of the very first things that I wanted to throw out here is I'm going to go ahead and hop over here. So here in a moment, I'll go ahead and show you the notebook LM, and I'll drop that in chat and everything else. But I wanted to just cover this section here with AI. Is what I did is I ended up uploading the documents to AI. And the main reason for this is just so that way we can take a look at what each one is. Because that was my initial confusion, is like, okay, why do we need 3 different standards for cryptography? Like, what's going on here? And so I'm just going to briefly cover the 3 different options here. So FIPS 203, which is now they're referring to as ML KIM. So that's for establishing the shared secret keys themselves. So that's the actual key exchange itself. Enables secure key exchange resistant to quantum attacks, producing a shared 256-bit key usable with symmetric algorithms for encryption and authentication. So that's the key thing to think about for 203, is that's the key exchange. And then I'm going to go ahead and skip over that stuff. And then we're looking at 204. So FIPS 204 defines ML-DSA for generating and verifying digital signatures, ensuring data integrity, authenticity, and non-repudiation. And then there's multiple different algorithms that coincide with that. And we'll dig more into it on the notebook LM. And then we have FIPS 205, stateless hash based. So FIPS 205 specifies SLH-DSA, a stateless hash based signature scheme for integrity, authenticity, and non-repudiation. So each one is a little bit different for a different purpose. And I'll also go in here in a moment on like all of these different things, because yeah, there's a bunch of different NIST docs that this coincides with. So this is the notebook LM. Let me go ahead and pop this open. I'll go ahead and drop the link in chat. And this is also something I'll include in Discord and everything else as well. And pretty much, let me double check chat here. Yeah, exactly, Cam. Yeah, maybe you've heard of Snowden. Yeah, my whole thing with Snowden is the fact of like, harvest the data now and decrypt it later. Like, it's honestly really concerning in the fact that we do not have more organizations pushing for that post quantum. Like, how can Tudu go through and get post quantum on their email service, but Proton can't? Like, I don't understand what's going on there. I mean, Proton is 20, 30, 40 times larger and focused on security and privacy and trusted by so many tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people, and they don't even have it yet for years now. Correct. Yeah. Yeah, and so that's like one of the big things that I started noticing, and that's why I started jumping down this rabbit hole, is because quantum can break the RSA and ECC, which is what everything's based on right now. So they're talking about like RSA, what is it, 2048 keys, and that's what they're looking at, like in that shorter time period of 3 to 7 years or so. But also, like, the other portion that I look at too is the fact that, like, even right now, you know, there's already institutions that could potentially have this technology already. So technically they do. So it's just going to become cheaper, more efficient, and readily available. But so I dropped the notebook LM in here, and one of the big things I wanted to note here is, so I also wanted to kind of show my workflow on how I go through some of this stuff too, because I have showcased notebook LM in the past and everything. And I did go through and build out the notebook LM already. But just to give you guys like an idea of how, is pretty much what I did is I went through on AI. It does list out some of the different documents that are in relation, but I loaded the primary documents into notebook LM, and you could see those on the left-hand side here. So 203, 204, 205. I also looked at the NIST pages for those documents, and they have the related publications as well that reference out. And so pretty much everything except for maybe 3 or 4 different ones I ended up throwing in here. And then on top of that, I also went through and added in a couple other additional resources. So like there's this organization, there's this company here, Encryption Consulting, and they have several articles on the 204, 203, 204, 205, and then also some of the different post-quantum readiness and so forth. Just so that way the notebook LM was a little bit more diverse with it, and also understood some of the threat vectors that is involved in like mitigation techniques. Let's see. And so another key thing here is, so then we can go ahead and pop open this. Let me double check. Yeah, it's not showing as well as I wish it would, but so this is one of the best things I love about Notebook LM, is so now I have everything loaded in here, and so now we have an actual diagram we could run off as well. So some of the first things I would prompt is, you know, like, what is post-quantum? So, you know, what is post-quantum? And then we already covered what the difference between those documents are. The first one is for the key exchange. Then we also have digital signatures, and we have hash with those 3 different documents is primarily what those are focused on. And again, I'm just digging through the documents themselves and so forth, but that's been pretty much what I've taken away so far. And another thing to note here too is that, so these are standards that outline the technique on how it's supposed to function, and then it's up to like the programmers to make it work. There is actually a GitHub that has all 3 of these in Rust as like a library for developers to use. I don't know why it's in Rust, but I did come across that as well. Welcome to the party, pal, PBO. And PBO's going live tonight too. PBO should come up and tell us about his war stories with FIPS. Yeah, there's been a lot of discussion with the FIPS portion. Welcome to the party, pal, AB. All right, so what is post-quantum? And it goes through and also lists out more of these documents here. So you could see that there's some of these different documents. Hopefully it's somewhat readable on your end. On other ones that were also, that I did not include in here just because they weren't as relevant. But it does go through and then walks you through it. I've personally already read through this portion here. But it's a field focused on developing new techniques to defend against cryptographic relevant quantum computers. So post-quantum cryptography. So threat to current cryptography. So modern cryptographic systems such as RSA and elliptic curve cryptography, ECC, rely on mathematical problems that are it is way too late in the day. Infeasible for classical computers to solve. However, sufficient powerful quantum computers can rapidly break those algorithms. And that's what it comes down to. So RSA 2048 and ECC 256 are expected to be officially depreciated by 2030, with a complete phase out of legacy cryptography anticipated by 2035. So yeah, so in less than 5 years, you know, what we're using now is going to be legacy, basically. Yeah, and that's why I'm surprised, like, but also, you know, organizations and governments move slow. So two key quantum algorithms pose significant threats. So these are the two different algorithms that are the most concerning to it. And then also the whole thing that I was mentioning a moment ago on harvest now, decrypt later, where, you know, nation state actors could already be harvesting the data and then decrypting it later on down the road when it becomes more feasible to do so. Impact on digital infrastructure. So the threats extend across entire cybersecurity ecosystems, affecting communication protocols. Now, like I said, Tudu did go through, Tato, whatever, did go through and do post-quantum. Signal uses post-quantum. There was a couple other services that I looked at that do as well. But still, it's very, very small. And then also there was one report that I read where 5% of organizations claim that they are post-quantum ready. So even though large-scale quantum computers capable of breaking current encryption do not publicly exist, their rapid progress, proactive preparation. Historically, full integrating new cryptographic algorithms into information systems can take 10 to 20 years. So it's crucial to start transitioning now to avoid future security vulnerabilities. Yeah. And that's why I'm like starting to freak out about it a little bit. I did actually look at the draft, but I decided not to leave it in, to leave it out for now. But once it actually does get published, I'll add it in. So I skimmed through it and so forth, and I didn't really feel that it was necessary. I was really trying to focus on these three documents in particular. But yeah, the FIPS 206 is in draft. I did see that. So, and I mean, it should be published out here in the pretty soon, because I think it started going, I think it went into draft in 2024. All right. So, I mean, that poses the whole concern there on the fact that, like, nobody's really doing it yet. The technology does exist, so we know what we need to do for the most part. But of course, it's not like you just click a button and do it. So, and I'm sure PBO would, you know, go into great detail in regards to that. But now we can go ahead and break down some of these other documents here. So that's great. But now provide a comparison between the 203, 204, 205, and how to implement. And this is also where I really like Notebook LM in this case, because like when we were looking at this stuff the other day during our other stream, like I have no idea about the math on there. I don't know I couldn't even understand 80% of the publications. It is way above my level, especially for cryptography. So that's where leveraging AI to help translate that a little bit is very useful. So Crystal's cyber algorithm relies on the difficulty of the MLWE, so module learning with errors. And there's a lot of different specifications within these documents too, because there's all kinds of different bits that you can do with it for the keys. And then there's a lot of different things that coincide with it. But that's where we can also go through and further expand on it. So like right here, it's talking about ML KEM 512. So encapsulation key 800 bits, decapsulation key of 1632 bit or bytes, and then ciphertext of 768. And so then I can hover over this, and then it says parameter set. FIPS 203 specifies 3 parameter sets for ML KEM, each tailored to different security levels and performance characteristics. So it's kind of like equivalent to like AES, 128, 256, 512. So. But so now implementation considerations, those choose the parameter set that best matches your security requirements. Oh, finally. I was waiting for PBO to hop in.
Hey, how you doing?
Welcome to the party, pal. This is way more up your realm.
Not, it is, but it's not. Like we talked about last time, I just run the FIPS. They tell me to run. I don't really get into the weeds of it, to be honest. The other part of that is, I thought quantum at least is 10 years away. So, but I could be wrong.
Oh God,
but
it is not. Yeah, no, it is definitely not.
I mean, so you can actually run quantum. AWS has quantum you can run on theirs, but it's super expensive. So
I would imagine so. Yeah, like the main thing that draws me into this is like I'm not going to be developing anything with it or otherwise. I'm just trying to understand the technology a little bit better. And these are like the documents that the programmers, are supposed to run off to figure out how to implement.
I wouldn't even say programmers. To me is super general. When you have quantum people, those are mathematical people. Because if you go, I'm an AWS guy. You can just go out there and run the FIPS endpoints. It's already out there. You don't have to do anything special. Or if you run a certain database, you can say, "Give me the FIPS encryption," and it set it up for you.
So, do you know if AWS has these post-quantum encryptions available?
I do not. I guess I need to look before my stream. I would think so. I guess I can look while we're talking. AWS and Azure is usually on top of it. The reason why I kind of hedge a little bit is the government standard's not asking for them.
Correct. Yeah.
Right. So for me, if the government standard's not asking for them, I'm not doing them. Right. So, that I guess that's my issue is they're not telling you to use them yet. So, NIST by itself is a heavy lift. So I don't think people are adding to their lift. So
that's kind of the concern that I saw is the fact that there's not a requirement for it. Therefore, they're not dropping that kind of money yet.
So that's what made me believe it's a little further off because they're not asking for. I don't even really hear people talking about it, to be honest.
Which is even more concerning in the fact that this is a legitimate concern.
That's kind of why I paused a little bit. They're not even really Unless I'm missing it, I don't see people really talking about it a lot. So
Yeah, because literally what we're looking at here is here in the near future, our encryption is going to be breakable. Like it's not going to be really secure anymore. It's not like a script kiddie is going to be, you know, running a quantum computer, but it's going to be way more readily available and accessible. So that's what's concerning. You know, when every country around the world has a supercomputer, quantum computer that could just break this encryption, like,
I guess I'll pause a little bit. We barely got enough power to do AI. That's why we build. That's why we build nuclear power plants. So I don't know, man. I go
hey,
back and forth.
I can go grab my tinfoil hat. I mean, who says that they're actually using those, you know, nuclear power plants for AI? That could just be the cover for quantum.
That could be. I'm sure. I'm sure quantum gonna get a piece of that because that's the level of power it really needs is quantum. But yeah, I just looked out there. AWS has post quantum encryption out there. They got articles out there. I don't know if they're. I don't know if you can use it yet. Yeah, they got articles.
And there is actually a document like it's also stated here in chat that, you know, the government did, you know, tell NIST that they got to come up with the standards, but there is actually a section in the Federal Register as well for it. I don't recall it offhand. I think I took it out of here actually. And the main reason I took it out was just because it was a thing just dictating NIST to do the standards and everything else. But it did have some type of deadlines on there too.
So the AWS has hybrid post quantum TLS in their key store. They're talking about it, but like you said, it's not on any of the really any of the standards yet. So, but the standards are usually behind, to be honest. So,
yeah, and so what's probably going to happen is nobody's going to really take it that serious until the federal government says, "Hey, we need to enforce this, and this is the deadline."
Yeah, but they did. You said that about CMMC, and they gave them another 10 years.
Well, it got the main issue with CMMC was and that comes down to the implementation portion because there's not enough people, and it's a lot of money.
You think quantum gonna be cheap? You think quantum gonna be cheap? Come on.
Well, and the crazy part is that it's so much more secure, but like you could still run it on the devices that we have today.
I think they struggle. Well, I take that back. If you get the encryption chip, I haven't checked it out because I know a lot of the encryption when you put them in a database, it slows down things. So, but they did have the chip that just does the mathematics for it. So I haven't really ran those types of numbers.
I'm pretty confident it does slow it down, but it's not like to a breakable level.
Well, when I was in DOD, we would run 1 billion rows at night, man. We were barely getting it done in the windows, in our backup windows. Because I know I struggled. I was going to interview the guy that came from Discover to help me actually solve that problem I was having, because I was never going to go through 1 billion rows.
Yeah, that's a whole different level.
Miss Burgess said you need to get ready. So the problem is the industry's always slow to react. And if the government's not pushing, I mean, we talked about that. The reason you have GRCs because the government says you need to do PCI, NIST, CMC. The government puts those requirements on you. So if the government doesn't put those requirements on them, they're not going to do it.
Yeah.
I think people think like you and other people, and I used to be that way when I was younger. People don't do security for security. They do security because they have to do security. GRC is a cost center. So I think people think they're going to jump on this stuff. They're like, no.
Hey, we have a video that outlines how you can, prove that GRC is not just a cost center.
How many videos you got on your channel now? Now, how many videos of that you got? One. So I don't disagree with you. It's just
that was from Kelly.
Oh yeah, shout out to Kelly. But I just think that's what I see in the industry, right? I had bosses always tell me, we trying to shrink the GRC. We trying to, shrink our IT.
No, I mean, it makes sense. I get it. Um, it's just like she mentions though too, is the fact that like orgs probably aren't even thinking about it because they are not hearing about it, and they're not budgeting for it either.
Well, then I started a little bit is that's at the top of the pyramid. And when we talked about business are barely doing risk across the whole enterprise. So y'all talking about quantum, a whole nother level of risk. I don't think people even thinking about that level yet.
Well, and where this really comes in is the services that already have encryption. So that's where I see it being concerning. Like if you're already required to have FIPS and you're not planning your post-quantum standards yet, like that's the concerning part.
That doesn't concern me. I mean, from a GRC high level perspective, I'm on the ground, man. We just trying to get our systems hardening, man. We barely doing the basics, man. Y'all talking about quantum computers.
But this is also where it becomes proactive because, like, okay, if your encryption could be, broken in 5 years, that's something you should have on your roadmap at least. No? You're saying not even document that?
I work for companies that's nowhere on the roadmap, I promise you. I worked for a Fortune 500 company. It was nowhere on the roadmap a couple years ago. Not even talked about, period, quantum. AI gets talked about because AI is a business driver. They believe they can cut people with AI and save money. Quantum to them is just a cost. So if they don't have to do it, they're not going to do it yet. You got to remember, too, if you mess your keys up, you can't get that data back. So
yeah, there's still a lot of organizations that are using encryption to some extent, though, too.
Oh, like, everybody's using encryption. The cool thing about AWS is they make it easy. S3 bucket now, you can only run it encrypted. They give you a AWS own encryption because they already know from a business perspective, people were blaming AWS and the government. Long story short, when we did the Snowflake, everybody was like, why didn't Snowflake force them to do MFA? Snowflake's like, that's not our job to force people, but the Congress blamed them. So a lot of default things, they're at least setting basic encryption.
Yeah, and then also I noticed that Google Workspace had silently, right after Snowflake's incident, forced all of the root accounts to have MFA.
Facts, because people were, which I know why they're doing it, but I let them off. That's not their job to tell you the level of security and help you with your encryption. But Congress was blaming them, so all of them was like, "Okay, we just gonna cut it on by default." But people forget. You got my thing up, 10-4 hat. The government is snooping on a population. If there's a couple articles, it's called the government's going dark because they can't read people data anymore because it's all encrypted.
Yeah.
So that makes it a little harder. So, but I just think y'all, as always, shout out to Study GRC. Y'all just ahead of the game. The problem is you think everybody's on that road, but maybe I could be wrong. I'm gonna ask my bosses tomorrow. Are we talking about quantum? Is that on the map? And I just hasn't seen it. I already know the answer.
Well, and that's what it comes down to is the fact that there's not enough discussion about it, and the time clock's gonna run out of it.
We talked about this, man. Money's not infinite. Money's not infinite time. Money and time's not infinite, man. I promise you, my boss always tell me, I got bigger shit to worry about, man. But go ahead.
Well, and like I said, I mean, this primarily I could see would affect the people who are required to encrypt. So
they're not going to do it because they got bigger stuff on the fish to fry. And FIPS is expensive. FIPS is very expensive to run. I know quantum is going to be crazy. Regular FIPS, if you're doing a FIPS application and you putting that program and you're doing it yourself, you got to send it to a government. That's $100,000. And they slow as stuff to certify it because AWS complaining and Azure complaining. They got some modules they done turned into government. They haven't been reviewed yet.
Well, and so one of the documents that's referenced is this 856. And so that's a series of documents. And then that works with, that actually maps to the 53 cryptography requirements and so forth. This is one of the different NIST docs I never really looked at or otherwise. But like that's the direction I see it going, is in 5 to 10 years or whatever, then these frameworks are going to be updated, and that's going to be the point where they're going to actually have to do something about it.
Yeah, but we just went from 140-2 to 140-3, right? And long story short, AWS Azure said, here they go, just call them. Okay, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Just call them.
Turn the check mark over.
Yeah, just turn the box on and we're going to bill you some more money. So from a practitioner standpoint, unless you're really into encryption, I just don't dig in that deep. Especially as a GRC person, is the database using FIPS? I need that screenshot, yes or no, right? Is the S3 bucket? We got that FIPS endpoint. We want all our internet traffic inside our tenant, inside AWS Azure. Are we using private endpoints? Yes. Are they FIPS? Yes. Checkbox. I'm not looking at the how many rounds. I ain't looking at key length. I ain't looking at any of that.
Well, and it also brings up another portion, because like we talked about before, is like it's definitely feasible in the fact that more and more is already going to the cloud, and
Facts.
This would just push more companies to go to the cloud anyways.
Yeah, but we had this conversation, and you're 100% right, but you still got to configure it. I get small companies. I'm in AWS. I'm good. You are incorrect. You are incorrect.
In 10 years, I'll just ask, the AWS AI to configure it for me.
You could. I think that's really, I think that's really the future. Shout out to AWS and Azure. They do give you, they call them reference implementations of, if you're running EC2 and Linux, this is how you set it up for government work. So it kind of walks you through that. But I think a lot of that now in AWS and Azure, you can hit a button and it can figure out most of that for you out the box and pre-configure it for you.
So inside of Google Cloud right now, they have a console AI that you can opt into, and you could ask it questions. It could read logs. It could help you deploy something. You could literally say, hey, I want to deploy this with this much storage, and it'll actually walk you through the whole process.
Yeah, AWS and Azure has it. Yeah, they reference, AI reference them, but that's going to make it easier. And I think a lot of that's going to come out, like you say, pre-configured of how you want it, and you just hit the button, stamp it. And I mean, I did a couple of videos. You can run AWS config, and it'll run through your setup and tell you, and give you a score and tell you what you need to fix. So
yeah,
I might show that tonight. Shout out to me.
Yeah, come on, PBO.
Shout out to me. Shout out to Miss Burgess. But no, once again, y'all ahead of the curve. I think practitioners, unless you at a big company and you dealing with nuclear codes, I don't think the average company is talking about quantum.
I mean, hey, I'm looking at quantum for everything local and quantum, post-quantum encrypted services already. Like,
why?
Why not? Get ahead of the game.
Man, I'm trying to block and tackle. Quantum to me is like a man, but I understand what you do. I just don't think people enough talking about it enough for me. I wouldn't say I'm gonna say I'm not focused on it. I'm trying to get my containers. I'm trying to get my Kubernetes down with encryption. People running way more containers than talking about encryption, especially at the quantum level. But like I said, I get where you're coming from.
Yeah. Well, and there's so many different aspects to the security side of it that, you're worried about a lot of other things before the encryption side of it.
And it's not mandated by the government. Like, I got to do FIPS or some type of encryption. I'm trying to do the basic level of encryption, and unless you have a mature security team, people are struggling out there, man. I get people still reaching out talking about ITAR. I'm like, dude. So they can't even do ITAR.
Yeah, and so one of the other unique things with Notebook LM is, for an example, I can go ahead and pull this open for the FIPS 203, and then I can go ahead and click on key concepts for an example, and pop that open, and then it provides these different sections here. So, it has implicit rejection and shared key 256. So then I can click on that, and then it's going to go ahead and give me a breakdown in chat here on it'll actually develop a prompt just for that particular topic. And so that's where, you know, going through and just trying to learn it. Because also, like, the other aspect, like, I'm not expecting to go through and actually understand all of this. I'm just trying to understand like the basic concepts of what the difference is, and then also the terminology. So, because it's kind of like with AI, with all of its terminology too.
Yeah, I'm struggling with AI. You jumping the corner. I put some in the back chat. That's AWS. They actually have a lab that you could do on their site using
Oh,
some of the
bam.
quantum keys out there. You know, I'm an AWS guy. They talking about FIPS 140-3 and the post quantum stuff. So they're always looking towards the future. Like I said,
They want that money.
Yeah. You know, like I said, shout out to the big four. They got that down pat with the FIPS, the encryption, private links, whatever you need in NIST, CMMC. They have all those government compliances down, and once again, reference implementations so you can figure it. But yeah, check that out. Right there, they did have a lab in there that you can knock out.
Yeah, that is actually pretty neat. Yeah, I went ahead and posted that in chat as well, if you guys want to check that out.
I'm at to send AWS a bill. Go ahead.
The other benefit with that too is they also have a bunch of other resources for different organizations too for post quantum.
Yeah,
on that page.
Yeah, and this is good about that. A lot of times they show you how other vendors are using it too. Shout out to Zero Trust. So.
Yeah, and then like I went ahead and clicked on key concepts for the 203, and then here's what the sources say. So what FIPS 203 ML Kim introduces the module lattice based key encapsulation mechanism standard. It's a cutting-edge cryptographic framework designed to secure data against emerging quantum computing threats. Is a key encapsulation mechanism. So a set of algorithms that allow two parties to establish a shared key over a public channel. And so the basic way that I kind of understand it is it's just a better way of doing the key exchange. That's really what it seems to come down. And it used to be called Crystal's Kyber, but then they renamed it to ML Kim.
Shout out to B-Dubs. We talked a little bit about that in the CISP, the key exchange.
Yeah. Well, and those were the topics like in the Sec Plus that I struggled on with cryptography and networking. Like, no. But it is also important, so.
I just call it.
Wouldn't you consider encryption as like a
foundational subject?
Well, a reactive. Well, it's not really necessarily reactive.
Proactive.
Yeah.
For me, it's a base foundation. You can't do security without encryption. You gotta do.
It's right of boom, though.
We could debate that. For me, you can't have security without encryption. So I don't know if it's right or in front, leaving, because you can't secure anything if you can eavesdrop on it. So you got to have some level of encryption.
Yeah.
I mean, because you can easily listen to, transactions. And for me, out the box is encryption in transit and at rest. I mean, that's foundational.
So let me ask you, does your home router run WPA still, PBO?
I need to check that. I don't think so. I think I changed it, but that's a good question.
That's one of the that's like a pet peeve of mine personally, is just so many people like ISPs will just give you a router and then it'll sit there for 15 years or whatever.
I know. I need to check. I upgraded it, but a lot of times they reset your router when they download updates. I try to force updates at least every year. Most people don't even update their router, so I at least try to force update mine.
Yeah, and so that's kind of what the 203 is for, is that key exchange portion. It gives you, the requirements for that or the standard for it. And there's a lot more that coincides with this portion. It really, the language is what I'm trying to get down a little bit more, because there's a lot more of references that come out of it for different theories and mathematical equations and so forth, especially in the publication itself and the actual document. It has some really complicated looking artwork that's supposed to be math. And I'm just screenshotting it and throwing it through AI at this point.
You're doing more than me. If they doing ellipse or whatever they doing, I take their word for it. As soon as AWS say we good, I'm good, man. I'm calling FIPS 204 or whatever FIPS they're calling. Like I said, I'm just getting a 140-3. They talking about FIPS 204 and 205.
Yeah. A little bit of a jump, ain't it?
Yeah, but like you said, I think for that quantum and the length of keys, you're gonna need to generate for them not to get broken. People aren't even doing 140-3. I know a lot of people were struggling with that.
Yeah, and I think that was something to do with on CMMC as well, as a lot of people were freaking out about that as a requirement for CMMC, or they were talking about making it a requirement.
Facts. I think they did.
Yeah. I haven't checked on that, but there was a lot of discussion with CMMC and the 140-3.
So you jump in the quantum. we barely doing 3. So
well, I mean, hey, go big or go home. And so that was another question I was going to have too, is so let's say a particular framework or otherwise states that you have to have, 140-3. If you have something even stronger like post-quantum, then theoretically you could check the box that you exceed that requirement. But what if it says in your contract you have to have 140-3?
And my boss complains a lot about that. Most time people don't care if you're more secure. The problem with that is I did that at the government for the IRS. When they did their Nexus scan, I failed them all because they were looking for exact check marks. So I was more secure, but with the Nexus scan, it said I didn't meet the standard. So I had to physically go through and mark them all. I was not happy. So that's kind of why they're behind, and a lot of people don't like FIPS and government. The scanners are behind, and how they go through your infrastructure and check it. Long story short, we were doing IRS schisms. My boss used to be a NSA guy, so we were doing, if the IRS was higher level, we did the IRS, but if the STIGs were higher, we did the STIG. So we went through each of them and made a decision. But when the IRS scanned it, we failed a lot of them, so we had to walk through them individually, which sucked.
Yeah, PBO over here giving me a hard time about, thinking too far ahead. Somebody has to talk about it.
No, I didn't say. I didn't say I'm fine with it, but I'm just letting you know, practically, most people aren't there yet. I mean, that's all I'm saying. I think it's an interesting subject. I just, once again, y'all just ahead of the curve, and most people. Maybe Miss Burgess has a different thought about that. She seems to be way ahead of me. And I'm quantum, just in the field. I'm in the field. In the field, like I said, I haven't heard anybody talk about quantum at all. People talk about AI all the time. I haven't heard anybody utter a word about quantum.
Well, and I honestly think that full tinfoil hat on the fact that it's a pretty significant issue, but also if you look at the geopolitics these days, look at the EU trying to make encryption illegal. So they've already tried 2 different occasions, and there's currently a bill going through in I believe it's Sweden right now, where they're literally trying to make encryption illegal, to where you have to, the actual provider has to maintain the encryption keys at least to be able to decrypt the data.
Well, is that encryption illegal, or they just want to have the back door, right? I think for me, that's
they want to have the back door is technically what it is.
Right. So for me, those are 2 different statements, but I get what you're saying. They want you to have encryption. They just want to be able to read it, right? So
correct.
Okay. They want you to trust them. Trust them.
Yeah.
Okay. I just want to make sure we see. Go ahead.
Yeah, and so that's like one of the issues, like on the geopolitics side of it is, that's happening in the EU twice now. Thankfully, it didn't pass. But then also like over there in Sweden, I believe it's Sweden that has an actual bill going right now. And so they can't decrypt it, so they're trying to find that back door. And then I kind of feel like that's one reason why this post-quantum isn't being pushed as hard.
I got a question for you. So if there's terrorists in New York and we can't read emails and the government can't catch them, are you blaming the government? Because we just don't magically catch you terrorists. You got to be able to snoop their stuff, right? So I just want you to understand what you're saying, right? So when we can't catch the bad guys, right? Because their stuff is quantum encrypted and we don't have the keys, are you cool with that? You stopping the government from
already released all of this stuff. Like, why do they need the encryption keys when they're already on the device?
Well, if you look at the last thing with Apple, they were on the device, but the government couldn't decrypt them. The only way they got them was they were backing it up, and they didn't have it encrypted on a backup. But I think Apple. So that's the question. If you determine, are you cool with that? So if somebody dies because they couldn't get the encryption of the device, are you cool with that? That's the question, Chris. I need an answer.
That's a little bit too far out there and everything else.
No, you out there. You Mr. Quantum today. You got to be able to answer those questions, right? So you don't have to answer, but those are the questions you got to think about, right? Because it's not magic. It's not magically we be catching bad guys. It's not magic.
Well, it's really the questions that everybody needs to ask themselves and so forth, because that's the kind of bills that are being passed, or
Facts.
What's direction it's headed.
Facts.
And so forth. So I mean, that's what it really does come down to. I mean, I'm not saying you're wrong in that in such.
I didn't answer the question. It's a question. We have to answer that. It's a question, right? Because and I could give you my thought pattern on that, but
I have no problem answering it technically in full, because there's so many different variables that coincide with that. But then, you could throw it back in the same aspect that, collecting all of this data and tracking billions of people around the world on every activity that they do, every shared moment, every personal exchange, conversation, and so forth. Does that make it okay to, catch one person? Like, look at TSA. They have a horrible track record at actually catching things going through their checkpoints. So then how does another system like this, so you might catch a terrorist once in a while, but does that offset the downside to it?
That's the question.
Exactly. It's not very straightforward. Is the problem.
It's yes or no. But I ain't what you saying.
Well, and I think that's where it really comes back down to the individual, because you're going to have, that's where you also, vote with your money kind of thing too. So if you care about that, then you're going to go with a different company or otherwise. Like,
I'm frowning up because 90% of America put everything in their mama on Facebook and they don't give a shit. Fights, marriage, I'm cheating on my wife. So they told you that they don't give a shit about their privacy. But that's my thought pattern. I don't know. You know me, I be going too far. I'm a pessimist. They done told you they don't give a shit. They told you for me accessing those for free, you can have all my info.
But you could also defend that in the fact that, were they really aware of the consequences though? Because that's also the other thing, is most people, when you actually tell them like the actual risks that are involved there and what they're actually agreeing to with these services, they're not actually aware of the potential consequences. So
I'll give you that, but I mean, if you don't want to be informed, that's on you. I was gonna say dumb, but I'm being nice tonight. I'm trying to be nice tonight. So if you don't know what you're doing.
Yes, exactly. At least Azure and AWS will have the infrastructure in place.
Oh yeah, because they're trying to get that government money. Facts. AWS has quantum computing you can use out the box.
Yeah, and also
okay, shout out to Ms. Burgess.
Yeah, Burgess is also agreeing on that. That AI is such a hot topic that that quantum is really kind of being pushed out.
Well, quantum doesn't get rid of employees. I think AI side, because they trying to They're using that as a profit center. Cam's give PBO is absolutely privacy's worth life. Answer now. Didn't even give a chance to phone a friend. Facts, Cam. I be putting pressure on people. Can't phone a friend. We doing it now. But no, that's my role as an elder. I stuff. But Chris made a good point. I think he kind of glossed over this. Those are decisions for young people y'all need to make. I'm black. Black dude don't live like 67, man. I got another decade, man. So, hey, y'all got to make those decisions, man. You know, PBO's time about up. You know, I always tell people, old people got to get out the way, man. Y'all got to make those decisions. The problem is, and Cam knows from the Empire of AI, people don't know what they're giving up. The oligarchs that took all your money, Zuck done made $1 billion off your data. You ain't even realized it yet.
Yeah, one of the articles that I actually shared the other day in the Discord server was actually talking about how governments around the world, not just the United States, but other countries have been implementing AI into different services and so forth. Okay. And then they went through and actually did a survey and for the actual people leading these, like the people in charge of these agencies, and 60% of them, or right around that figure mark, had no idea of the actual risks of AI. Like they didn't even know that it hallucinated. Like they thought that it was just a 100% fix all. Like, and then an overwhelming amount of them were like, yeah, this probably shouldn't be deployed for, you know, booking healthcare appointments or, you know, whatever it is. Yeah, so there's a little bit of a backtrack now too, which I found surprising.
Yeah, I just think we had the same problem. If you go back and look at the our Senate and Congress talking about Facebook now, they didn't know what they were talking about. Their aides did all that research. So
yeah, and you have another you know, rep point right there too, that people are careless with their information digital footprint. Of course I have met people who, you know, pull the I have nothing to hide portion. But also there's, I would say, more people that I've spoken to about it were just completely unaware and then become concerned and then paranoid when they find out just how much information is collected. So
it's a crazy amount. The problem is it's almost too late.
Yeah.
I mean, we've been out there for 10 years, and shout out to those Instagram, Facebook, MySpace before that. The amount of data they're getting off of that, then they're combining that with third-party back offices, buying information from your bank almost. So it's crazy what your digital portfolio of individual people they're getting is just amazing.
Yeah, and there's a particular video I'd love to share. I got to find it again, but oh yeah, wow, that was actually really easy for me to find, probably because they're tracking me all the time.
You said it and just brought it up for you.
Yeah, exactly.
It said AI helping you out, man. Shout out to AI.
So I don't know if you guys are familiar, but there's also this other YouTube channel, All Things Secured. I watched some of his stuff here and there. But he did publish this video, this was 7 months ago, but I think this is a pretty good video. And he literally starts it out pretty sarcastic, actually. That he quit online privacy, and this is why. And then he also goes through and talks about how, you know, it really comes down to your threat model. Like, you know,
Facts.
like you don't have to go to the extremes. Like just minimization makes a difference. So, yeah.
Most people don't know what a threat model is. Shout out to me. I got a couple videos on the threat model.
Finally.
I put the quantum workshop link in the back.
Jeez, PBO. You really love AWS, don't you? Oh my God. AWS has a .aws?
That is weird. I saw that.
What? I've never seen that before.
That might be because it's an internal website. It might not be searchable if you just, I don't know. I take that back now that I said it. Wow, I didn't notice that either till you said it.
Yeah, that's different. Well, like Google has .google. So
if you're big enough, you can get your own domain.
I guess so, huh? I mean, when you're running your own internet.
Facts, man.
Like, all right then. But yeah, so that's really what this comes down to, is just trying to bring more awareness to these standards themselves. Eventually, we might have to deal with it. And it's, I'm personally just concerned that, you know, more services aren't taking it more serious yet. Like, particularly the security focused services too. So, I mean, it's also important to note that like VersaCrypt is really well known for open source encryption, and they don't have anything close to this either. So,
what's the service? There's an open source FIPS 140-3 module out there.
Yeah.
That we use a lot, but you know, I think this is. I think they're gonna do it. I think it's gonna be like 5 or 10 years from now. Maybe I'm wrong. Hopefully, I'm wrong. Probably 5 years. They're getting the reference information out there. I'm sure they're getting letting people respond to it. The big vendors are getting ready for you to spend your money. So I'll probably say in the next 5 years you'll actually start seeing it.
Yeah, and you can also see here, like it cites this section here. This is in the FIPS 204, and it states that it is believed to be secure even against adversaries in possession of a large-scale, fault-tolerant quantum computer. And that's like another concerning language used, is the fact that it technically it doesn't exist yet, so we're just guesstimating. I mean, imagine if you went through with these post-quantum, you know, encryption, and then find out that, oh, never mind, it's no safer than what you already had.
Well, I think they're going to test it. Once again, I think AWS and Azure, they have quantum services. And the cool thing about NIST is there's a lot of educational resources in research. I think Illinois University has a quantum computer. So I'm sure they're weighing in heavily on those docs.
Yeah, and I haven't looked into it, but I wouldn't be surprised if Amazon has one too. By now.
What, a quantum?
Yes.
They do.
Yeah.
So I'm sure they're testing it. I'm sure they're weighing in. I'm sure Azure has quantum.
Yeah, and I did see at least one complete library on GitHub for these standards in particular. They were built in Rust, and they did provide some instruction to it. But yeah, I find it interesting.
Yeah, just like I said,
even if I wanted to apply this to my own local machine, I can't though. I haven't been able to figure out anything available to do so, considering my limited knowledge on it.
You trying to use the FIPS 203 module on your machine?
Yeah, I'm gonna do a full drive encryption. Like, come on, PBO, my home lab, you know.
Okay, on the lab, I don't know if I do that. Oops, we messed up the keys on this release. Your data's toast. I'm like, no, I'm good.
What is the term used when you use encryption to delete data?
Shredding? What's it called? Shredding?
That might be it.
It might be
where
shredding.
You go through and encrypt it and then just delete the key.
Yeah, that's real big on AWS. That's why they said they can use VMs, because if you encrypt your VM, if you drop it and somebody else pulls up that VM, they wouldn't be able to read it because they don't have your key. I still would NIST. I would still NIST erase it.
I was gonna say until quantum comes out and can decrypt it.
So yeah, so for me, when you do that, it's a lot of residue floating around with data on it. So I was kind of working on in EC2 when you don't need that volume, you can run a shutdown. That shutdown, I was going to go ahead and run the NIST erase on it before I put it back into the virtual disk. But most people, go ahead. I was going to look that up.
Oh, I was going to say it also shouts out to the 140-2 and 3.
That's where I'm at.
Yeah, so implementations of MLDSA. So we're looking at this 204 one right now. Generation and signature algorithms are expected to be validated for use within hardware cryptographic modules meeting FIPS 140-2 or FIPS 140-3 or higher physical security with non-modifiable or limited operational environments.
Crypto shredding is what it's called.
Yeah.
Crypto shredding. Yeah, like you said, the big guys are going to have it out there. I just think it's going to be pricey because the FIPS endpoints are kind of pricey now.
Yeah, and another benefit with Notebook LM is you could go through and generate these timelines and so forth. So then, you know, there's all kinds of stuff you could dig into this. But then also typically all the way at the bottom here, it'll go through and drop, like you could see here, abstract concepts and algorithms. So then this is all of the different concepts and algorithms that are mentioned within these documents that I had selected. So then I could individually go through and throw it into the chat in order to learn about those particular ones, or drop that in Google or otherwise too. So, matter of fact, I'll probably just do that now. I'm just going to go ahead and copy this whole section here. Head on over to, you know, my Grok here.
You like Grok? You've been doing a lot of Grokking lately. Make it a verb.
So yeah, I had talked about it before on the fact that I primarily use Gemini. I think the ROI on it's really good. However, I do like Grok in the fact that it's unlocked. So you could kind of guide it a lot better. So it listens better because it's less restricted. So like for an example, I was trying to make one of those audio generations that had curse words in it, and Gemini refused to do it at all. It will not curse at all.
Yep, data remnants is huge. By Miss Burgess. Facts. That's why I'm trying to erase before I send my EC2 back. So on my post shutdown. So that's
yeah, the data remnants is still a thing too. Let's see how post-quantum standards address that.
I don't think it will. I think they believe if it's encrypted, they're gonna let the remnants be out there because they don't think you're gonna be able to break it. I think it's gonna make it worse. So
yeah,
I think we'll need to erase it. We quantum key it. So that won't be broke for another 1,000 years. So we crypto shredding it.
Well, and also like if you look at the federal government, like they have, you know, different things where they're like, oh, this can't be released for 60 years or whatever it is. And their thought process behind that is that anybody who was involved with that would be long gone and dead by then.
We the best.
Yeah. So, and that I kind of feel like, is that kind of the same thing with the data nowadays?
Facts.
To where like, if we could just keep it safe enough for a couple hundred years, like, is that the goal?
I think that's the goal.
So it makes me think of like Futurama, you know, finding a, you know, hard drive and not knowing how to plug it in.
Oh, that's a fun thing when they were showing kids trying to, I grew up with a rotary phone. They were showing like a 4-year-old a rotary phone and they couldn't figure it out, or a cassette, or even an 8-track. Most people don't know what an 8-track tape is. That's how old I am. So
yeah, I've heard of it.
Right. I did my work on a 5 1/4 floppy. You don't know, but most people don't know what that is.
Oh gosh.
A 5 1/4 floppy. That's how old I am.
Yeah, PBO goes to shut down his machine and it sounds like a jet engine.
Facts, man. Facts.
Yeah, because how would you verify that the data has been erased where quantum is concerned? I mean, that's I have no idea. I don't know enough about the subject.
No, that's a good point. I mean, that's, I don't know. You would have to kind of, part of your, shout out to Dave, your SOC 2-3 process would show kind of you erasing it. And like you said, from a quantum level.
What do you do, Burgess, are you working with post-quantum already, or is it just a fascination, passion of yours?
No, she working in it.
Did I miss that?
No, I didn't see it either.
Oh.
She's in cybersecurity or something.
PPO's like, yeah, beyond your level there, on the encryption side at least.
Oh, 100%. Like I said,
Yeah, I was just curious because there's not very much discussion about it all. So
there's no discussion. That's not. Let me roll that back. I think in business, general business, I don't see quantum. Now, of course, you're talking about scholars and people in PhD programs and people talking about it, like kind of, at a high level.
Yeah.
But I just don't see a lot of implementations of that. But that's how, it goes. I remember when they talking about FIPS and they finally implemented it. So, I mean, that took like 10 years.
Well, and then so there's multiple other documents here, secured hash standard, digital signature standard. And so these are supposed to complement these new standards as well, even though they were published previously. So, and they also still reference out to some of the different stuff that's used nowadays. So we could even see here in the 186-5 post-quantum note, apparently. So let's see what it says about post-quantum note, because
I was gonna say, what is that? I don't even know what
yeah, probably some note that says like, hey, null and void everything we already said when quantum comes about. So that's the 186-5. But yeah, that was the surprising factor to me, is just the fact that NIST actually has a lot of cryptography docs.
Oh yeah.
Like they might actually have more on cryptography than they do like the risk management side.
Oh yeah, because you got to remember, they're big part of that, which I like NIST, is education. So that educational arm, they be reeling adding to the documentation and the research to the documentation. I think NIST really digs into that from an educational standpoint.
Mm-hmm.
And really, they really start doing that. Now, big businesses are starting to do that, jump on the education, because now they can monetize it. But NIST's been probably doing that for 50 years before the big companies start doing that.
Yeah. Yeah, and so this section right here, so the post-quantum computing note in the 186-5. So the 186-5, also known as Digital Signature Standard, DSS. All right, post-quantum note, the most critical point regarding FIPS 186.5 or -5 and post-quantum computing is that the algorithms specified in FIPS 186-5 are explicitly not expected to provide resistance to attacks from large-scale quantum computer. So that's the note in 186-5 apparently, is that it doesn't apply to quantum. So,
well, I guess, does it apply or just not at scale?
It says not at large-scale quantum is technically what it states here.
Okay, right.
Yeah, so it says here, important note, so this is directly from the doc. When large-scale quantum computers become available, they will threaten the security of approved asymmetric key algorithms, in particular, the digital signature scheme, key agreement schemes.
We already knew that. Facts.
Using RSA may need to be replaced with secure quantum resistant or post-quantum counterparts at the time that this revision of 800.175B was published.
Facts. I think everybody knew that.
Yeah.
If you run a standard encryption and quantum, it's going to just eat it up. So I think we do that. But yeah. So obviously you got to do larger keys and more rounds in there. So
yeah, I'm glad there's more people out there who are, looking at it and so forth. Like, it's pretty concerning. So, and the lack of discussion and so forth out there.
Yeah. PBO like
somebody's got to do it.
Yeah. PBO, we just gonna run the regular stuff till it's too late.
Yeah, PBO over there is just going to be, screaming in 853 until they retire it.
They're not. I think they're just gonna add quantum to 53 because FIPS is in 53. I think you're just gonna replace it with whatever is ciphers that are approved for quantum. That's the only thing I think.
Well, why would we need a framework when we could just plug it into AI to take care of it?
You could, but you need something for the AI to go off of, right? That's the framework. But no, you're correct, right? So the framework that the AI is going to use security is going to be 853 or whatever it is, 171, 172, CMMC. So the AI is learning the framework so it knows how to protect your infrastructure.
Yeah, and then I went ahead and copied over all these different algorithms and concepts that it mentioned, and it provides just a very brief summary of each one. So I'll probably drop that in Discord. But yeah, there's so much that coincides with this. And it also mentions here, too, that NIST has been working on post-quantum since 2016. That's when they first opened up. And I think there was 86. It doesn't say it right here, but I believe it was 86 different submissions for standards. And then they knocked it down all the way down to 3.
Facts. Shout out to NIST.
To address these threats, organizations are urged to begin transitioning to quantum-resistant digital signature standards, such as those specified in the newly finalized FIPS 204 and FIPS 205, which are designed to withstand quantum attack. Now, I wonder, okay, FIPS is recommending this, but is NIST following this? Since the federal government doesn't require it yet, I'm assuming not.
Say it again.
So NIST right here states that to address these threats, organizations are urged to begin transitioning to quantum-resistant digital signature standards, such as those specified in the newly finalized FIPS 204 and FIPS 205, which are designed to withstand quantum attacks. So NIST is recommending and urging organizations to start transitioning over, but is NIST doing so? So,
I would, yeah. But for me, I think NIST as a framework or foundational thing, I think they recommend stuff for people, right? Then the different government agencies kind of figure out what they want to do with it.
Yeah.
But
well, and wasn't there like a huge thing around like academia, like other countries stealing, NIST stuff?
They already did. Oh yeah. Well, yeah. Because they tell you certain ciphers you really can't run out of the United States, but people are stealing those, getting those ciphers and using them.
Yeah.
And the companies are selling them to foreign companies anyway, so I think that's part of it too. So
yeah, and I'm going to go ahead and throw this in chat again for the Notebook LM, and then we'll probably start bringing this portion to an end here. But yeah, this is a really good go-to source here. I'll post this other portion from the concepts in Discord as well. But yeah, I definitely expect more discussions around it too, like moving forward in the future. I'm going to definitely keep an eye out for services that actually do coincide with it. But yeah, I think it's just going to be interesting to see how it plays out.
Yeah, I think you need to be having those discussions. But I'm sure there's some discussions out there.
Yeah, there's really not that much content out there on post-quantum though. Like a lot of it's very similar to where it's like, oh, we need to do this, but it's not like really going into that much detail. It's all like the same thing.
Ain't nobody doing it. Everybody's talking about it because once again, the government's not mandating it yet. Yeah. They're not. I don't think they're close to mandating it. So people are not. I don't think people would even test it in their QA and their dev environments. They're trying to get to 140-3. Yeah, they're trying to get to -3, not quantum. So that's the big one. So they're trying to once again make sure that doesn't break anything that they're currently running.
Yeah. No, I mean, it makes sense. I mean, it's no different than everything else. Like, I mean, is an organization going to do 53 if they don't have to? Probably not. So. All
right. So then I'll get like you. Everybody should be doing 53. That's what I sound like.
Yeah, exactly.
Everybody should be doing 53. If you're not doing 53, you're not with me. I think somebody said that about me. If you're not doing 53, you're not with me. Right. So, but once again, I think, I don't know. And then even the government's kind of behind of forcing people because, like CMC, I wouldn't say they backtracked on CMC, but they backtracked on CMC. So,
the government?
Well, didn't you say down they got 10 years for it to implement the whole phase, right? Then they push the timeline back?
Yeah, so originally they were saying that, everybody's going to have to do it like immediately after it finalizes. And then before they finalized it back in December, they were like, wait, you know what? Maybe that's not a good idea because, this has the potential to impact like 100,000 companies.
So,
and we don't have enough people to even certify these companies for CMMC. So, to actually go through the whole process and everything else. So then they moved it around and they're like, we're going to do a 7-year rollout instead. So then, we'll start with the big boys and work our way down to the smaller ones over this 7-year timeline. And then now the last thing I heard was it got moved to a 10-year rollout. So, but I mean, hey, especially the big thing around CMMC is at least it's something. So rather than like virtually no requirement.
PBO disagrees.
What do you mean? How do you disagree with that?
Let's go big or don't go home. Go big or don't go
you're
at
just
all.
mad because they didn't pick 53.
I am. I'm very disappointed in that. I should write a scathing letter to him.
Hey, you could still, send him, some snail mail. You should have submitted it on the comments and said that, 53 should be required for it.
The lobbyist already got to him, man. I'm good. The lobbyist already got to him. So.
Yeah, and so I went ahead and dropped that in chat again, and I also posted the other portion in Discord. But yeah, if you guys have any questions, definitely drop it in the comments. Hop into the Discord server. The Discord server is going to be the best place out of the streams themselves. And did you have any final last marks other than the fact that you have to go live in 37 minutes?
No, once again, a good stream. I think you need to interview Miss Burgess. You need to get her in the rotation. No. Once again, good stream. Great stream this morning. I love when you get Grok talking to you. I'm like, I need to do that. I need to step my game up. But no, once again, great stream. I think quantum's at the tip of the pyramid. So that's just my two things. And tomorrow I'm going to ask my bosses, are we talking about quantum at all? They're going to look at me like I'm crazy. But I'm going to ask, seriously, I'm going to ask them tomorrow. Is quantum on the roadmap?
They're going to be what? Yeah, what is that?
Nah, my boss is super smart. Both of them are super smart. I just think
they're going to turn around and be like, you're fired.
Yeah,
you're stupid. Get out.
Facts. They be like, man, they're going to say, we're trying to get a hold of this AI. That's what we try to figure out. But once again, a great stream. Shout out to the chat. Great questions going back and forth.
Yeah, I'll catch you guys.
Yeah, come
catch
check
you guys
me out
over at PBO's stream over here.
Come and check me a little bit before you go to bed, Chris.
Yeah, maybe. We'll see. No, I'll be there. Small business, and then of course that 853. How do you put that in the same sentence? I'll save it for your stream.
Say it real quick.
I don't know how you put small business and 53 in the same sentence.
Because you can do low, and low is probably a third of the check. So,
for a small business.
Yeah. You can do lows. You can do lows pretty simple.
Oh,
I don't know. Maybe I just been doing it forever and I take it for granted. I think if we go low, medium, high, look, I don't know what you kind of board. How many checks is the low?
We'll pull it up on the Trello board.
Yeah, we'll pull it up on the Trello board. I don't think it's that many checks if you start off with low and work your way up.
We'll see. But yeah, thank you guys for tuning in and so forth. I'll see you guys in Discord, and then also I'll catch you guys on Thursday. B-Dubs will be presenting on Thursday as well, and see you guys at PBO stream. You guys have a great night. GRC Mafia.